What's going on, guys? Well, I was able to sneak out the 636 and just got through putting its 5th tank of gas in it. Yeah, it's something we don't really talk about a lot, but you know, just operating costs, right? These sport bikes, it doesn't really seem to matter. A liter bike, middleweight, it really doesn't matter. It's like 100 miles ish per tank. I don't know why I find that a bit amusing, but here we are. Anyway, out having fun with this thing. And I don't know, I figured I'd bring you guys along for the ride. It always puts a smile on my face to get this bike out and about, and what makes it so much fun is, you know, these middleweights are so playful. They're not going to blow you away with power, but God, they're just more of a youthful feel, I guess, for me in a way. You know, the liter bikes are serious business. And when it comes to just outright performance and power, they can't be touched, but that's only when you're allowed to play with the power of those bikes. See if we can sneak over here and knock this corner out. Oh man, but see what I mean? Like, you can just enjoy the ride. You're not, I don't want to use the term distracted by the power output of the bigger bikes with these, but God, they're just such a hoot. Had a lot of rain lately, so there could be some puddles we might have to deal with. On the side of the tire, you just roll into the throttle. I will say this, it'll be nice when this bike is de-restricted, because we all want a little bit more power, right? And that's kind of the point of this chat, getting the bike out, getting some air through it. When I've been making these videos about how fun these middleweights can be, one of the responses that I always get is, well, it's not a liter bike. In terms of, you know, how fun could it be? You're not making all the power. Kind of shake my head a little bit to that. But, you know, yeah, we all want a little bit more power. You know, I would like for the bike to be optimized, and I think that's really more the point for me. So what I wanted to do for this chat is kind of walk you through where I am when it comes to sport bikes, or any motorcycle for that matter, and the power that they put down. So, as somebody that does ride-along videos, ride and review videos with all kinds of different bikes, I don't really ever judge a motorcycle based solely on one criteria, whether it's handling or power or comfort, any of that kind of stuff, because what makes every motorcycle unique is kind of what makes all of us unique as individuals. We're all a little different. We all have different points of view. We all have different sizes, the way that we're built. So each motorcycle is going to be able to fit somebody better than me, or maybe a bike fits me better than you. But the point of it is that for every class of bike, the main criteria for me is it competitive? Is it, you know, what you would maybe consider to be height-weight proportionate? And as long as it fits within that window, I don't really have a complaint. You know, a perfect example of that is when we're on a middleweight sport bike here. Let's take the CBR 600, the 636, and the GSX-R 750. And they're all middleweights, right? You say, yeah, well, the 750 is the most powerful in the class. Yeah, maybe, but it doesn't mean that it's the best. They all handle fairly well. And if truth is being told, none of these bikes remain stock for very long. Guys will re-gear them, pipe them, tune them, velocity stack them. You get the idea, right? So once you level the playing field in that respect, the basis of reality that we all live in, right? With modifications, these bikes all feel really similar. And you pick the bike that suits you best. But when it comes to power, for me, I'm not really a size queen when it comes to that, provided that it is fitting well within the context of the class that I'm riding. You know, if this 636 was making half the power that it's making, I probably wouldn't be gushing all over it, right? Because it wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't be an appropriate amount of power for the type of bike that it is. You know, we always want maybe a little bit more, sure. But again, it all has to be taken into context for what you're going to be doing with that bike and how it's going to be primarily enjoyed. And I think for a lot of guys, it becomes frustrating because you kind of have it bashed into your head that, you know, it's got to be all about the speed, right? But that's not what it's all about. It's about the riding experience and just the sheer joy of motorcycling. You can't have that be, what's the best way to be polite about this? For folks to focus solely on power is kind of shitting on what makes riding a bike so much fun. You know, you get a lot of gatekeeper types out there. And it's just a real shame because you start to get the idea that there's a lot of making up for something going on. You know what I mean? Like, for the guy that would respond and say, well, it doesn't make the power of 1,000, it's inferior. You're talking about middleweight sport bikes specifically, but really any motorcycle can be roped into this. Nothing makes the power of a liter bike. Now, I ought to know, I've got one. And I think for a lot of folks, they get wrapped up in just one specific aspect, and these are also the same guys that rarely, if ever, will put those liter bikes, if they even own one, they'll rarely be putting those bikes on the side of the tire. You know, they're, 3-knot rockets, and that's great. Look, the bikes are awesome at that. But that is such a narrow band, a narrow segment of a very broad bandwidth of performance envelope that these bikes can deliver for you. But I mean, if that's the best that your skill set can deliver, then I guess that's what you're stuck having to deal with in terms of your motorcycling experience. I'm of the opinion with sport bikes that it almost has to be mandatory that you get a chance to get one of these bikes on track. Like, there should be some kind of a rider's class that you gotta take if you're gonna get one of these bikes, that'll allow you to put the bike on track, some type of a organized fashion, so that you can start to develop a feel for having the bike on the side of the tire, and really where all the fun lies with these bikes. And it's right here. So And it really has nothing to do with outright acceleration or anything like that, because you can only utilize so much of that. Because let's face it, they're all pretty fast. Whether we're talking about middleweights, leader bikes, man, they're all really good. But to have a bike like this and not be confident with it, I understand that that can be frustrating. Especially when we're talking about side of the tire activities. And so for the guys that are really only running their bike straight up and down, you know, that's where they're comfortable. That's where their skill set pretty much begins and ends, right? And I don't know, for me, as I'm going through these exercises that you're hanging out with me today on, it's as simple as this: just getting the bike out, having fun. You know, you're not really over stressing yourself, the bike, mainly just exercising a skill set. You know, and to gain confidence with anything that you're doing, you've got to practice. There has to be a level of stick-to-itiveness too. Now, I think that's a big part of it too, is just, now I think a lot of guys might give it a go, like, oh, I'm gonna take this corner a little bit faster, which is good. But, you know, practice on looking through the corner. You know, I'm looking up here, and I'm looking towards that horizon, looking at where I am going to be. You don't have to be going fast, but as you're exercising where you're looking, what that'll do is it'll naturally have you stepping up your pace a little bit, but it's going to make you a lot safer rider because you're not going to be as prone to target fixation, which is a leading cause of off moments for motorcyclists. And I mean, there is nothing in the world more fun. Yeah, go, 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 go. Downshift, dropping her in, looking at our favorite little stop signs. Hello, friends. This thing is so fun. So, no, you absolutely do not have to have a ton of power. And look, you don't have to have a ton of power to have fun with a bike. Here's the other thing I wanted to bring up. You know, when I'm talking about the, you know, power adequate to the class, right? I've ridden fast retro bikes, you know. Give an example of that. Here's a fun one, where power absolutely had nothing to do with how much fun I was having with the bike and how impressed I was with it. Since we're on a green bike, let's talk about that green Royal Enfield Continental GT 650 that I rode. Did the ride review on that bike. That bike was so much better than it had any right to be. And whether, it doesn't matter what metric you're going off of, price point, power, tire technology, suspension, it doesn't matter. That bike is a 1964 motorcycle built in 2024. But for its class, it was fast for its class, which made it surprising. It made it very entertaining. Yeah, the engine was torquey, it had a lot of grunt, and cruising down the highway, I mean, it would keep up with traffic fine, had okay, decent enough power on reserve for any motorcycle, but was practically a monster in its own class, which it doesn't share with too many other bikes. You know, your typical 400s, that bike's got another, 250 cc's to play with. So in the lightweight class, it was so much fun and so much more exciting than it had any real right to be, even though objectively it's slow. Subjectively, it was really good. God, this bike's got such good stability and so stable, even with the compliance suspension. And it's got quick turn in. Anyway, sorry about that, guys. Giving you a commentary as I was going through that sweeper on the overlook. So, anyway, the Continental GT, that's a bike that for me, I almost bought that bike. In fact, the guy that bought it the day, 2 days before I was heading up to the dealership to cut a check for it. And again, it's because not because it was fast, but because it was fast for its class. What's another bike? I'll tell you one. Here's another one where power really didn't seem to matter at all to me whatsoever. And it's a shame they don't make this bike anymore. The Suzuki GSX-S 750. That bike, not only is it not powerful by objective standards at like, what, 100, I'm just going to say 115 horsepower because I can't remember the outright number. Maybe it was 120, but you get the idea. 460 pounds, not light either. But I'll tell you what, it was a fun bike to ride. Very stable. It was a good motorcycle to ride, and it was better than I had anticipated it to be in terms of total power output. And we're talking about lightweights and middleweights here, and a middleweight sport naked at that. For me, outright power, it becomes a slippery slope type argument because, I mean, look, if 200 horsepower is the benchmark, well, why not make it 220? 230, right? I mean, you start to look at it from that point of view, and it's kind of funny. This is so fun. Whip this thing right back over. Yes, go, 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 go. Hit the bump. That bump right there is where I'll typically snap the throttle back on the GSX-R 1000 and let it carry the front tire up. That's, I don't know, if I was in a different gear, I could probably do it in this bike. Anyway. I guess the point is that power becomes too much of a slippery slope and you can never have enough of it. The idea is to have something balanced. And balanced, fun, enjoyable, and in this case, economical. I just cannot get enough of my 636, guys. I'm serious. I keep finding myself looking for more and more excuses to ride it, and I think that at the end of the day, that really is the most important attribute for any bike that you get. It's a treat, and I can't wait to get my GSX-R 1000 back. Don't get me wrong, but what a fun place to be in the meantime. And I gotta say, having both of these bikes in the stable, making it a whole lot of fun to get up, get out, get on one of these motorcycles, exercise the skill set, have a blast, bring you guys along for the ride. And listen, if you've made it this far into the video, consider smashing that subscribe button. It helps the channel out more than you know. But with that, guys, I got to wrap it up. Hope you all have a great one. Take care.